Hi all, this is Maria and welcome to my studio. Today we're going to do something a little bit different and work with some Arteza markers, alcohol ink, and vinyl sheets. Check the description below because Arteza has a discount code for you all to use if you're interested in trying any products. So please use the show more button and check that out. These are the paint markers, and there's a nice variety. This is a set of 20. And there's a couple of silver. I'm just putting my silver and gold together because there's a couple of those in each set. And then there's a nice variety of colors, yellow, blue, you know, the basic colors, so green, black, and some reds and pinks, purple. So this is the basic marker. There's no marking on it for color or anything, so it's the cap. So be sure that you keep your cap with your marker for similar type colors. That's what the nib looks like. It's a little bit thicker nib, so I would say medium point nib. But it's a nice set. And then the next thing I'm going to use is this set of 60 alcohol markers. And I'm really excited to try these because I have an idea in my head of how I want this painting to go. And I think using the marker will give me some control. There's swatch cards with this set of markers. And there's 60. I don't know if I mentioned that, 60 in this set. And a really pretty heavy duty case. So let's look at this. So here's the case, and it does have a shoulder strap, and then also just the regular handle. So you've got a couple of ways you can carry it, so it makes it a little bit mobile if you're trying, if you're on the go or whatever. It's big, I think, to carry if I were doing a lot of back and forth, but if I were going on a trip, for example, and I wanted a nice compact set, this would be perfect. It's a heavy-duty set, as I mentioned, those clips on the front, and then there's Velcro on the front and Velcro on the side so that you can open the case up, and then you have these dividers that hold your markers and give you access to the markers. So I think that's a nice feature. This is a nice case, actually, for this set, and then there's some empty slots for additional markers or blending markers, or perhaps you have a water brush or something that you use with your alcohol ink. So this is a nice variety of colors. There's purples, there's pinks, yellows, reds, oranges, yellow, green, blues, and a couple of neutrals. And then there's some, there's black, of course, some grays, and then some kind of pearly colors, a beige color, and there's also a blender pen. So I think that's a pretty nice selection of colors and will certainly work for the project that I have in mind. So let's close this up, get this out of the way, and take a look at what I'm going to be using for the substrate, which are some vinyl sheets. So I'll be using these, comes in a set of 50 self-adhesive vinyl sheets, and these are really meant for the Silhouette or Camp Cricut, the cutting machines. But I'm going to use these, and I've used the black in previous videos, which I love, so I use the matte white. I've got alcohol in a little bottle and my gloves. One thing I wanted to mention about the vinyl sheet is that this is self-adhesive. I'm leaving that backing, that paper backing on. You could peel it off and put it on another substrate like a cradle board or something like that, but I'm not entirely sure what I'm going to do. So I'm going to go ahead and leave that backing on and see what I end up with, because honestly, if it's not perfect, I can cut it up and use it in a collage. So I've chosen some colors. Each of the colors is marked on the cap with a number and the corresponding color. They're these triangular shapes so they don't roll around on the desk, which I think is nice. And let me get my gloves on here. And here's my substrate. So I wanted to mention that this has two types of nibs on it. It has a broad nib and then a fine tip, and it's pretty fine. So I'm just going to lay down some colors using the broad tip, just put some spots of colors down randomly. I'm not sure how this is going to work. I'm not sure how it's going to activate with the alcohol ink or with the alcohol. So I'm just getting some colors, and I'm kind of I want to kind of go a little bit diagonally across the page so I can see how that works. I have in mind to do this, to get the alcohol ink down and then do a free form type of mandala. So we'll see how that goes. So just put a variety of spots down. You could do lines if you wanted. And then I've got my Conair hairbrush. It's a hot air brush that I'm using as opposed to a hairdryer. I do have a hairdryer, but it blows the alcohol really fast. And so I wanted to go a little bit slower because I'm experimenting with these markers and using the alcohol ink. So I wanted to go a little bit on the lighter side. This particular hot air curling is a curling brush, has 2 settings, low and high. So I'll be able to hopefully control that ink a little bit more. So I've got my spots down, just laying down some alcohol, trying to move the ink around, and it's looking pretty nice. The colors are vibrant, so I'll just keep moving it around. This is a little bit of an experiment. I've done a couple of alcohol paintings, but I haven't done a lot, so I'm kind of excited to see if I can realize my vision for what this particular painting will be. So I just keep moving it around. I have sped this up a little bit because you know, I'm just blowing it around with the airbrush or the hairdryer, and just adding more alcohol when I need to keep that ink moving. And see how it's really moving, I think, pretty nicely. You will see, I don't know if you can see it there, but the blue left a bit of a shadow or ghosting behind it. It goes away over time, but I just wanted you to know that you could get a little bit of ghosting from when you first put down your spot. So be mindful of how you lay your ink down, the marker. I don't like these little tendrils so much. I don't know. That's not really what I'm going for. I really would like a more wispy look. So I'm going to keep adding some alcohol and trying to move that around. Now, I will experiment at some future date with a blending solution to see if that makes any difference. But right now I'm just using the 91% isopropyl alcohol to move that ink around. And I'm liking the way that's looking right here with the wispiness. I think that's really pretty. And I think the colors look nice too. They're really, I think, holding up well with the alcohol. So I'm just going to keep moving this around. I'm going to add a little bit more color. I do, because I'm using that yellow and I'm picking up some of the other colors, I just wiped it on a paper towel to kind of clean off that nib a little bit. And then I'll add some more color directly on there and then add more alcohol and move that around. And that seems to be working really well. So I like knowing that I can add additional color on top of what I've already got. So that's really nice because I can add that a little bit more strategically and with a little bit more control, really, to get that color down. Because it's not moving, right? I mean, it's a marker, so it's staying stationary until I activate that with the alcohol. So that's a nice feature. That's something that's, I think, kind of nice about using a marker. And I just keep playing with this until I get something that makes me happy. And let me tell you, it's going to take a long time for me to get happy with this. You know how it is with artists when you are using mediums that you're not overly familiar with. I'll talk for myself anyway, I tend to overuse the product and to work it way too much. So I think you'll see that happens in this one because I could have stopped probably at any variety of points and I didn't. I just kept going. So I'm laying down some additional color, quite a bit more alcohol. Let's see how that works. Now I'm getting more the look I was hoping for, that kind of wispier look. So I might have to add quite a bit more alcohol to move that around. But that's pretty. I like the way this looks. Although I am mixing probably more than I'm losing some of the specific colors. You know, it's becoming more of the same color. So I'll have to go back in and add some of the different colors a little bit more strategically to reintroduce those. But I like that. So see, I've added a little bit of yellow there off to the right and a little bit more with the alcohol to keep that moving. One thing I wanted to show you about these vinyl sheets, if you do a lot of alcohol ink, this cleans up perfectly. I'm just putting alcohol on a paper towel and cleaning up those edges, and it is clean as a whistle. It's perfect. And so that's something that I know a lot of people are concerned with when they're using a variety of, whether you're using Yupo paper or whatever, the cleanup is always something that people are interested in. But this cleans up absolutely perfectly. I love that. Okay, so this is how it's looking so far. So now what I'm going to do is I'm done with the alcohol part of this, at least for the moment, and I'm going to use those Arteza markers. And you have to prime them. There's some instructions in the set that tells you, on the back of the packaging, that tells you how to prime them. And now I'm just going to start adding some stuff. I'm just going to start drawing in with the white marker to add some shape, some movement and shape, because I want to add actually a mandala on here. Now, one thing about this I'm noticing is that when I lay that white down on the alcohol, it's picking up the color. So it's not laying directly on top, it's actually absorbing some of the color. So the lines get really faint. So I'm going over them, a second time, making sure that there's a lot of ink on the paint on that marker, so I get a little bit more white, bright white on those lines. And so I might go over them a couple of times to make sure that they're as white as I would like. So I'm just randomly adding some lines and for a little bit of movement across that ink. You can see there where I'm going over it a little bit to brighten up those lines. Every now and again I have to clean the nib off to get the paint coming out the way I want it to. And this is all just sort of, on the fly, sort of designing it as I go. And there is a little bit of dry time on the marker, so before you move on to the next steps, you want to let that marker dry. It remains tacky for a little bit, so give it a dry. Now I'm using the gold, shaking it up, priming it, getting it ready to go. And now I'm going to use the gold to actually just freehand a mandala. So I'm making my center. I'll have to refine that a little bit. You'll see I do that. And I'm going to fill it in with the gold right on top of the marker, or right on top of the ink, the alcohol ink. And just change the shape of that just a little bit. It's all freehand. I didn't draw this out like I would do if I were doing a dot painting. I would be a little bit more precise, of course, with my, laying down a grid and then placing in my elements, my design elements. But I'm going to do this freehand, and I'll put a little gold in with that white. Isn't that pretty? You can see a nice shine. So that's a pretty gold. I want to fill in that that center just a little bit more. When I primed this, I got a little puddle of the gold, so what I'm doing here is just picking up some of that excess from the little puddle and placing it in that center. Okay, you can see that shine there. That's a nice shine. Now I'll start adding the other elements. I'm just going to do some little kind of leaf type shapes here. Just making up the pattern as I go. Add a few little dots. Just extending the design out, adding a few more of the leaf shapes. And a few more dots. I'm thinking what I want to do. Add just a few little lines. This is if I were doing swooshes, if I were doing dot painting. You can see I'm not being overly precise. This is supposed to be just a free-form mandala design. Add some larger circles. Shines pretty. Another little leaf shape. The ink behind it, I think, is really pretty. Now just add a few more dots. Now I'll just add a little crown on each one of these. This last row here. And again, just kind of making this up as I go, a little spike. The marker's performing well to get these little dots and elements down. Okay. So that's the basic shape of the mandala, and this is how the painting is looking so far, and you can see that shine. I'm going to let that dry, and then I'm going to come back and I'm going to do this top dotting with the white on the gold just to give it a little bit more definition and pattern. So simple, you know, just adding dots on each one of the gold elements. And I do think that that's highlighting the gold nicely. Put a little something there. And then do those last little crowns. So I think that's looking nice. I'll just add just a few more dots for interest's sake. And that's what the design looks like. I don't know, you know, I stand back and look at it. That's almost like a little bit of a mask there. I didn't notice how I was drawing it, but it kind of looks like some eyes and a mask. But anyway, this is where I thought I would stop. But, you know, I could not help myself. And this is where it kind of starts to go haywire. But I thought I would show you anyway, because not everything turns out perfectly, and not every vision is realized, but the imperfection has some value because we learn to do stuff, we learn how the medium works and responds. I'm spraying some alcohol and trying to get some little dots, but you see, I just keep spraying it. I seriously, if you'd been, I wish you'd been there, because we would have had such a good laugh over this in my studio, because I just seriously could not stop spraying that alcohol on there. And the more I sprayed, the worse it got, and I didn't know if I could save it. So let's see what I do to try. Oh my goodness. Let's see what I do to try to save it. I'll dry that up and see. So I've got these drips on there, but they're not particularly well defined. So I'm going to add some more marker. Please don't fault Arteza for this, because this is truly the artist trying to figure out what they want to do with the piece. Now, again, I think I told you I sort of debated whether I should post a video that I thought wasn't a particularly good work of art, and I decided that yes, I will, because not everything turns out beautifully or the way you imagined it. You know, someone else might think it's beautiful, but it certainly isn't the vision that I initially had in mind. So I just keep adding some more color, adding some more alcohol, trying to get that, you know, a little bit more interesting. It's running over the gold. I can still see the gold. The white is getting covered up with the ink. So I'll have to figure out what to do about that. But there I spray some more. Just keep spraying, Maria. Keep getting that alcohol on there. Oh my goodness. I kind of liked that, you know, the way the color was sort of seeping down that way. But I'll add a little more and see what happens in the end here. Use my my dryer to dry that up a little bit. All right, adding a little bit more. Just keep adding. I seriously cannot stop myself. And my studio smells so strongly of alcohol, so make sure you have good ventilation, particularly if you feel the need to use as much alcohol as I'm using. Be sure you've got your room well ventilated. I'm trying to pull a little bit of that ink up above where I have that mandala. Yeah, this isn't, that looks out. Yeah, spray it some more. Oh my heavens. All right, there's some drips. That's interesting. All right, I'm looking at it thinking, oh gosh, what more could I do? Yes, I can add some more alcohol. I kind of want those drips. They are a little bit round on the end, so I want to pull a little bit more of that ink down. And these markers are really working great. I mean, I feel like there's a little bit of control when you use the marker. So just use my dryer to move some of that around. And you can still see the gold mandala, but not the white lines so well. So I dried that up. I used a card there to just sort of control the alcohol a little bit. And now I have to, it's dry, and so I need to go over it again with the white marker to pull out those lines a little bit. Otherwise, they would have just completely disappeared. All right, so this is the final piece. And I'll tell you, it's okay. It's not exactly what I had in my mind. Tell me, would you have stopped after the first one? Would you have gone on this far? Do you like either one of them? There's the first one. Soft. Here's the second one, a little bit messier, right? Let me know what you think. I so appreciate you watching. Thanks for joining me in my studio. I'd like to see you as a subscriber. If you enjoyed the video, give it a thumbs up or leave a comment. Thanks so much for watching. Take care.